The white one is 77. At long last, Glenn Close is revealing the startling details of her life. You've seen her in movies, but you have no idea how she overcame a cult, an airplane tragedy, and a lack of resources to build her career. And it's only the start. The choices she made, the chances she took, and the realities she discovered molded one of the most extraordinary lives in the entertainment industry. What has she withheld from us up until this point? Let's discover. Close. Glenn was born in. She spent her formative years on her grandfather's estate in Greenwich, Connecticut, where she was born in 1947. The abundance and natural beauty of New England gave the impression that her childhood was idyllic. However, her future was altered when that happened. Mobutu Sese employed her illustrious father, William Taliaferro Close, a doctor. The ins and outs of Glenn's early years were impacted by the family's frequent travel between Africa and the U.S. due to his job. She was awkward around new people, and as a result of her father's decision to join the rigid moral rearmament movement, MRA, Glenn's life took a dramatic turn when she was 7 years old. The MRA evolved from an anti-war movement in 1938 into a cult, according to Glenn. Throughout its 15 years of existence, the group enforced stringent regulations governing its members' daily lives, beliefs, and even emotions. Growing up, Glenn was told she should not trust her instincts and that she should feel guilty if she wanted natural things. The Catholic Church was among those who spoke out against Mr. and his group due to their controversial beliefs. By breaking into professional theater at the age of 27, Glenn had finally broken free from her repressive childhood. She started out on an unusual path during her final year of college by phoning the theater department for audition preparation assistance. She landed her first role thanks to this courageous choice. Although Love for Love was a professional play that only ran for 24 performances, it gave Glenn Close her first taste of artistic freedom and her first role. In the late 1970s, she appeared in The Crucifer of Blood and Rex, two plays that solidified her reputation as a gifted stage actress. At the age of 35, Glenn Close made her film acting debut. She made her film debut in 1982's The World According to Garp, playing Robin Williams' character's mother. Despite her lack of film experience, she received her first Oscar nomination for this role, a testament to her talent. She had a wealth of acting experience under her belt before this, having performed on Broadway. She shot to stardom after starring in her debut film. 3 of her Oscar nominations came in her first 3 years on the job, as reported by Garp. She was an accomplished writer and a feminist, and the audience was moved by the authenticity and depth of her portrayal of her son's complicated and emotional relationship. She played Sarah Cooper, who dealt with her past relationships at a college reunion in a Hollywood film that catapulted her from Broadway. In addition to its critical acclaim, the film took home a major prize at the Toronto Film Festival. Because of the music, which the actors listened to Motown songs while filming certain scenes, this movie is remembered by many. Her performance in the film's most moving scenes garnered her yet another Oscar nomination and increased her already stellar reputation as an actress. The following year, she co-starred with Robert Redford as Iris Gaines in The Natural. She went out of her way to make the most of her limited screen time. People were profoundly affected by her performance, particularly her facial expressions, in a scene set in a hospital. She has received 3 Oscar nominations in the past 3 years, all for this performance. It was a huge hit at award shows and went on to become a classic in the world of sports movies. The 1987 film, Fatal Attraction, in which Glenn starred as Alex Forrest, was a career-altering role for her. Originally, the filmmakers preferred Deborah Winger or Barbara Hershey to Glenn for the role. Nevertheless, Glenn put in a lot of time and effort to prove that she could do it. She even sought out the advice of psychiatrists in order to flesh out her character and give Alex a backstory. It wasn't easy to film the movie, a violent. Glenn suffered a concussion after hitting her head on the bathroom mirror while filming a scene involving Michael Douglas. She learned she was expecting her daughter from the doctors there. The filmmakers changing the ending was another challenging moment. Rather than portraying Alex as a tragic hero, Glenn felt the new ending painted him in a negative light. William Hurt, another actor, convinced her to agree after she fought with the studio for 2 weeks. Alex played the villain in the revised ending. Critics and viewers alike praised the dramatic conclusion as an improvement over the original. The term bunny boiler originated from a horrifying scene in the critically acclaimed film, which featured a pet rabbit. Glenn became a Hollywood legend thanks to it, which received 6 Oscar nominations. The 1984 Plymouth Theatre production of Tom Stoppard's play The Real Thing was a huge hit for Glenn Close, launching her Broadway career. She portrayed Annie, a woman dealing with a love marriage, creative issues, and her involvement in. Mike Nichols directed an affair and Jeremy Irons was her co-star. Thanks to her outstanding performance, Glenn was named the Tony Award winner for Best Actress in a Play. 12 Tony nominations and 566 performances later, on January 3, 1984, the show was still going strong. In addition to its early success, it went on to win 2 prestigious awards, the Tony for Outstanding New Play and the Drama Desk Award for Outstanding New Play. In 1992, the Brooks Atkinson Theatre hosted the premiere of Ariel Dorfman's psychological thriller Death and the Maiden. An ex-political prisoner who confronts the man she believes to be the one who tortured her, Glenn portrayed Paulina Salas Escobar. As part of a challenging season on Broadway, the play showcased Glenn's acting chops in a raw and emotionally powerful performance. She had a busy but fruitful year, hosting the 46th Tony Awards at the Gershwin Theatre and accepting her. For this part, she became one of the rare actresses to win back-to-back Tonys for Best Actress in a Play, a feat achieved by very few. In the 1994 musical Sunset Boulevard by Andrew Lloyd Webber, Glenn played the role of Norma Desmond, which became one of her most famous roles. On November 17, 1994, the show debuted at the Minskoff Theatre and quickly became a box office smash. In a sneak peek, Glenn stole the show as the narcissistic silent film star. Her commitment to the performance was on full display when she paused the performance to engage with photographers. With 977 performances before its conclusion in March 1997, the show was a smashing success. As a result of her work, Glenn became one of the rare actors to receive a Tony Award in each of the last 3 decades. Returning to the Palace Theatre in 2017, she once again halted the performance in response to audience members taking pictures. Glenn Close is clearly committed to preserving the enchantment of the theatre, as evidenced by the photos. 3 marriages and a divorce later, Glenn Close's love life has been full of twists and turns. She met her first husband, musician Cabot Wade, while performing with a musical group. Divorce was finalized in 1971 after just 2 years of marriage. It seemed more like an arranged marriage to Glenn, who later revealed that the marriage had ties to a religious group named Moral Rearmament. Glenn felt she began to find her identity at William and Mary, the college she chose to attend. After a long separation, in 1984, she wed a businessman named James Marles for a second time. James founded Union Capital Corporation. He was highly intelligent, and he had degrees from Harvard, Oxford, and the University of Chicago. Their marriage was short-lived and ended in divorce, despite his stellar resume. When asked about relationships in 1987, Glenn made a significant statement. She believed that partners molded too many women. Additionally, she mentioned that she felt like she was losing her individuality during her marriages. David Evans Shaw, a biotech engineer, was her most recent husband. The couple tied the knot in a modest Maine ceremony and remained married for 9 years. Their split was characterized as amicable and mutual, and Glenn's publicist stressed that her client was not the one to initiate the dissolution. Annie, Glenn's daughter, was born in 1988 to her and producer John Stark, who she was in a committed relationship with. In a subsequent deeply moving interview, Glenn revealed that she had relationship issues as a child. It was difficult for her to maintain relationships over the long term, she said, because she was a member of a religious group that had traumatic effects on her mental and emotional health. For Glenn, his friendship with John Stark was a watershed moment. Her daughter, Annie Stark, is the center of her world. Annie spent her childhood on the Beanfield Estate in Bedford, New York, where she was born on April 26, 1988. Annie claimed that her upbringing was ordinary despite Glenn's fame because her parents were so concerned about keeping her grounded. Nature, animals, and spending time outdoors were some of her favorite things in the world. Annie married at the family estate in 2018 after keeping in touch with her high school friends throughout the years, following in her mother's footsteps. Annie joined the acting industry and became close with Glenn. The movie featured Annie, Glenn's wife, playing a younger version of her husband's character. Glenn told Annie that her performance would determine the plot of the entire character, and he placed his complete faith in her. Their already strong bond was further strengthened by this professional connection, and Annie is Glenn's closest confidant, and Glenn often seeks Annie's opinion on weighty matters. An older Glenn expressed her admiration for Annie, saying that she is stronger than she is and that she appreciates Annie's fresh perspectives. The big move to Bozeman, Montana was made by Glenn in 2019. Because her sister Jessie was going through a tough time, she decided to move to the quiet north side of town, close to Tina and her sisters. For over half a century, Jessie went undiagnosed with bipolar disorder, despite suffering from severe manic episodes and severe depression. In Washington, D.C., at the age of 21, she experienced her first psychotic break after having a terrifying hallucination in which she sat on her bed. In addition to living with bipolar disorder, Jessie's life was marked by 5 failed marriages. Her loved ones failed to recognize the severity of her mental illness and instead blamed her for her irrational behavior. Her affluent Connecticut family mistook her mental illness for a character defect and treated her difficulties accordingly. At the age of 51, Jessie was finally diagnosed in 2004. Years of torture, including repeated messages from voices telling her to end her life, had passed by that point. As a result of listening to these voices, she fell into a deep depression she called Beyond. Serious mental health issues also plagued Jessie's son, Kalen Pick. The symptoms of schizophrenia and mood disorders are combined in schizoaffective disorder, which he was diagnosed with. This proved that mental illness was hereditary and established a connection between their hardships. The same Mlan hospital that was featured in Girl Interrupted was where Kalen spent nearly 2 years before his condition stabilized. Jessie initially held herself responsible because she believed Karen had given him her shortcomings in her diagnosis. However, the shared experiences forged a stronger bond between them. They have formed a close friendship, and now whenever Jessie needs help, Kalen is the one he calls first. His story of recovery was so moving that it altered attitudes and policies toward mental health after he shared it with lawmakers in Washington, D.C. On New Year's Eve 2001, while her family slept, Jessie had suicidal thoughts, which was one of her darkest moments.